Hey guys, this video is about the people who rule the world and how they rule it. Basically, the world is run by a cult of religious fanatics. Now, all religions are cults. The whole world has been brainwashed by religions. I mean, why do you think there's like a church on every corner in the world? There's two groups of people in the world, okay? There are the rich, who are in charge, they rule the world, and I guess you could call them the elite, the 1%. And then there is the general public, the lower classes, the working classes, the worker slaves, whatever you want to call them. Now, the ruling elite, they have two different playbooks. They have a playbook that they follow and a set of rules that they follow, and then they have a playbook that they give to the masses to follow. The playbook that's followed by the ruling elite, that would be the laws of nature, the law of the jungle. When you look at the animals in Africa, the most violent and powerful animal rules. The antelope don't rule. Or if you look in the wild here in North America, the wolf rules over the bunnies. So in reality, that's how the elite operate. They operate in reality. They know that might makes right. They don't believe in any of these fantasies that they tell the lower classes. The elite rule with violence. That's why the cops have guns and tasers. And that's why the military has machine guns and fighter jets, rocket launchers and grenades and, nuclear bombs. They understand the laws of nature. The laws of nature are the powerful will rule. The strong will rule the weak, okay? That's just like all the predators in nature, like the grizzly bears, the lions, the wolves, etc. They rule over the bunny rabbits. They give you the Bible. They don't want you to live in reality. They want you to live in a fantasy land. They don't want you to understand the rules of nature. They want you to live in a fantasy world that doesn't exist. It's not real. They're just telling you stories that aren't based in reality. So basically, the Bible tells you to turn the other cheek and, don't be violent and don't kill anybody. They want to disarm the public. They don't want you to have guns and weapons. They want you to be the bunny rabbit. The Bible tells you to not be violent and obey the government and turn the other cheek. Who's the lead character in the Bible? Jesus, right? And he was like a peaceful hippie. He was non-violent and he didn't have weapons. And he let himself get murdered and didn't even fight back. This is the advice they want to give you. This fantasy advice, this fantasy world advice. I find a lot of females, they get sucked into religion and they believe it a lot. Let's face it, a female is a bunny rabbit, right? A female's not a lion. Females are bunny rabbits. Females don't want any violence to happen because they're bunny rabbits. So they like the advice that the Bible says. A lot of them get sucked into this fantasy world of the Bible. Like a lot of times when I make a video like this, people in the comments will say, God bless you. And, I appreciate all the goodwill of people saying stuff like that. But, there is no God to bless me, okay? I know reality and I know how the elites run this world. They are the ones that give you the Bibles, okay? The elites who rule the world through the laws of nature, they give you the Bibles so you will be a bunny rabbit, okay? And you'll be no threat to them. Let's talk about what a cult is, okay? Now, all the religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, they're all cults, okay? They're all brainwashing cults, and they all sort of, they advise you to be a bunny rabbit. All religions are cults. They get you to all dress the same. They get you to do rituals. They tell you to stay away from non-members. In Christianity, they say, don't be yoked with non-believers. They don't want you to talk to people outside of the cult because they might snap you into reality. A cult is a group with a particular and often dangerously fanatical ideology that has certain characteristics. The term cult comes from the Latin cultus, meaning worship. This is reasonable. A cult must have a leader who is either worshipped or greatly revered by the cult's followers, like Jesus or whatever, Muhammad. A specific cult definition can be hard to pin down because in order to be a cult, a group must have a number of attributes. People often disagree about what makes a cult, meaning that the definition is fluid. This is true especially in the context of new religious movements. Some of these movements have been called cults, while some people have argued against this for a variety of reasons. It is easier generally to get to grips with the characteristics of cults than to create a single all-encompassing definition. I said this before, the rich rule by violence. That's their playbook because violence works. If violence didn't work, then why do the cops and military use it? They have, like I said, they have jets, tanks, machine guns, grenades, nuclear bombs, etc. The rich have another playbook for the lower slave classes. It's called the Bible, which is your cult. They put you in a cult and they created it, but they don't believe it. The Bible, which is being taught to you by the rich, tells you not to be violent, turn the other cheek, follow the hippie pacifist Jesus, who let himself get murdered. Basically, they're giving you bad advice. Because there is no God, and the rich know this. That's why they are in power, and we are not. The law of the jungle is reality. The animals in the wild have a pecking order. The most violent are at the top. The predators rule in the wild because they are the most violent. The bunny rabbits just run around hoping they don't get murdered and eaten. The strong rule the weak in nature. And as human beings, we are part of nature. And it's the exact same way in human society. The rich who are in power have all the weapons of violence. They want a monopoly on violence. But for you, the weak, ruled lower classes, they want to disarm you. They want you weak so it's easy to dominate you. You are a weak pacifist with no weapons. And they are violent with all the weapons of war. They are the lions, and you are the bunny rabbit. Women are especially vulnerable to getting sucked into this religious propaganda. Women don't want there to be violence because women are bunny rabbits. So the bunny rabbits do what they're told and read the Bible. Now, let's go back to what the characteristics of a cult are. Experts have determined a long list of characteristics of a cult to help people determine whether they or someone they know is part of a cult, religious practice, or political group. The following cult criteria and cult behaviors are the best way to determine what makes a cult. A charismatic leader. Cults always follow a charismatic leader, living or dead, like Jesus, right? Whose teachings are considered of the highest importance. This leader may be considered a genius, or may be considered a religious figure like a messiah or prophet. Ideological purity. Members are strongly discouraged from questioning the cult's doctrine, and any doubts are met with shame or punishment. Conformity and control. Cult leaders often exercise an extreme degree of control over members' lives, including dictating what they can wear and eat and what kind of relationships they can have. Conformity is also enforced by group members who police one another. Mind-altering practices. Sleep deprivation, chanting, meditation, and drugs are often used to break down individuals' defenses and make them more susceptible to cult ideology. Isolation and love bombing. It is common for people in cults to be encouraged to cut contact with outsiders, including close family members. Within the cult, new members are often subjected to love bombing, a practice where new initiates are showered with love and praise to bring them deeper into the cult and foster a sense of belonging. Remember I said before, in Christianity, a lot of the pastors, they'll say, don't be yoked with non-believers. They want you to stay away from outsiders. It's an us versus them mentality. Cult members are often encouraged to see the cult as superior to life on the outside and to feel that those outside the cult lack understanding or insight. Apocalyptic thinking. Preparation for a supposed apocalypse or cataclysmic event is a major characteristic of many cults, especially cult religions. Time and energy. Followers are expected to dedicate huge amounts of time and energy and often money to the cult to the exclusion of their own lives, interests, jobs, and families. I mean, when you really think about it, Freemasonry is a cult. They get all those guys in there brainwashed, and they got them doing all this stuff too. So yeah, all the people who join Freemasonry are brainwashed into the Freemason cult. There are several different types of cults that function in slightly different ways. Despite these differences, cults can always be dangerous and harmful to the people participating in them, and in some cases, to people outside of them. There are religious cults, political cults, and self-improvement cults. Religious cults claim to be religious movements and are predicated on religious doctrine. They sometimes use existing religious doctrines and sometimes create entirely new ones. An example would be Scientology. Not all sources agree that Scientology is a cult, but those who allege that it is a cult, including ex-members, cite financial pressure on the members, personal information gathering and blackmail, and instances of abuse. Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate was a cult in America in the 1970s based on religious beliefs about UFOs. The cult leader, Marshall Applewhite, led 39 believers to mass suicide in 1997. Love Has Won. Recent cult news has included Love Has Won, a cult whose members allegedly mummified and displayed the remains of their leader, known as Mother God, upon her death. Yeah, there's a lot of different religious cults. The main religious cults that the elite use to control the world and control the lower classes are Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Let's take a look at some pictures here, some cults. See, here's a picture of a cult. You have the charismatic leader up there. It's just like going to church. What you're seeing here, this is the same as church. You have a guy that gets up on stage. He puts on a fancy costume. You know, he's in a fancy building. And then he tells you a bunch of make-believe fairy tales and just brainwashes you. Now, here's another cult. Judaism is a cult. Now, this was in New York City. Or I don't know about New York City, but I don't know where the baseball fields are down there in New York. But wherever they are, this was a night where all the Orthodox religious Jews, they went there to talk about the dangers of the internet and all this stuff. But look at them; they're all dressed the same. They look like they look like they're in a cult. They all got black hats on. They all got the black jackets on, the white T-shirts. They all look exactly the same. Now look, they're definitely in a brainwash cult. Look at that. That's a massive cult. You know, and it's surprising to me how many people fall for this brainwashing. Now here's Islam. Now this is the same thing. This is a brainwashing cult. Look at everybody. They're all worshiping a building that's square, and they're all bowed down to it. You know what I mean? They're a bunch of followers. Yeah, there's more of the Islam cult. More Islam. Now, this right here, this was the Heaven's Gate cult run by, what did they say his name was? Marshall Applewhite. And anyway, they committed suicide by drinking these poisonous drinks because they thought the Hale-Bopp comet was coming to pick them up. And they were going to beam up to the Hale-Bopp comet and go to another plane of existence or something. So these people were brainwashed and they committed suicide and destroyed their own lives because they just believed a lying con man who told them fantasy stories. And they get sucked into believing it because they're followers. There he is, Marshall Applewhite. And he was a cult leader, and he sucked in a bunch of people who probably feel like they didn't belong anywhere, and they wanted to feel like they belonged to something. So they joined his group, and he sucked them in and brainwashed them and told them all these ridiculous fantasy stories and got them to commit suicide. There it is. Heaven's Gate. Hale-Bopp brings closure. Yeah, so they drank their little poisonous drink and they laid down and covered the bodies. Now here's Joel Osteen. Now he's a very popular Christian pastor. And, you know, he's brainwashing people to be bunny rabbits, okay? Because that's his job. His job is to keep you a little bunny rabbit so you don't pose any threat to the people in charge. This is Kenneth Copeland. Now, I don't know about you, when you look into his eyes, he just looks insane. He looks like a little bit of a psychopath. And here's Joe Rogan making fun of Kenneth Copeland on his podcast there. But yeah, he got some crazy eyes, doesn't he? I mean, would you take advice from this guy? Okay, Jack Van Impe. Jack Van Impe, he's passed away now, but he was a Christian pastor. He brainwashed people into being little bunny rabbits and pacifists. Just another cult leader, brainwashing people into fantasy land. Jimmy Swaggart, another cult leader, brainwashing people into fantasy land and robbing them of their money. Now, he got into a big scandal because he cheated on his wife with some woman. I forget what her name is, Jessica something. T.D. Jakes, he's another cult leader, but he's a cult leader for the black community to turn them into bunny rabbits and to keep control of them. Creflo Dollar. I mean, his last name is an appropriate name because he was asking his followers for like a multi-million-dollar jet. He wants a lot of dollars. And if you see how his hands are placed right there? That's the Freemason hand sign, guys. These Christian pastors, they work for the elites, okay? And their job is to keep you a pacifist bunny rabbit and to keep you in a fantasy land. And so you don't understand the laws of nature and how this world is really run. It's run through violence and weapons of war, okay? The elite don't follow the Bible playbook. That's for you. Creflo Dollar, he wants your dollars. Jim Baker. How many of you remember Jim and Tammy Faye Baker? These guys are well-known crooks. He actually was put in jail for ripping people off. And so, yeah, he went to jail, and him and Tammy Faye got divorced. And, yeah, but he's back at it now. He's back preaching and, selling people useless crap they don't need. He's another brainwasher, mind control. They control you with fantasy stories. There you go. That's him when he was younger. There's Jim and Tammy Faye. Tammy Faye she was famous for wearing like extremely heavy eye makeup. I mean, look at those eyelashes. But yeah, he ripped people off and went to jail. Now here's Pat Robertson from the 700 Club. He's another, he's another man working for the elite who's been put in place to control the lower classes by telling you fantasy stories and making you big promises of a better life in the next life. And don't worry about this life. It'll be better next time when you come back. Well, you're not coming back, okay? There is no next life. They just want you to remain ignorant and living in a fantasy world. Now, this is David Koresh. David Koresh, he was the leader of the little cult there in Waco. And the government raided his compound there. Now, David Koresh, they all had a bunch of weapons. They were gathering up weapons, and they believed in end times and an apocalypse and stuff. But, the FBI and police organizations in the States, they surrounded his cult for a couple months. And then eventually they burned it down, and they killed, over 100 people there. And a bunch of them were children. And, David Koresh was just another cult leader, living in fantasy land, teaching people about fantasy. There it is. There's Waco. Got burnt to the ground by the government. All kinds of children were, killed because of the government. There's the Waco compound. Thanks a lot, FBI. They called it the Mount Carmel Center. And it says right here on the stone, on February 28, 1993, a church and its members, known as Branch Davidians, came under attack by ATF and FBI agents. For 51 days, the Davidians and their leader, David Koresh, stood proudly. On April 19, 1993, the Davidians and their church were burned to the ground. 82 people perished during the siege. 18 were children. 10 years old or younger. So a lot of people lost their lives there. I mean, if they had never gotten involved in that cult in the first place, they'd still be alive. There's crazy Kenneth Copeland. Here's Benny Hinn. He's another famous brainwasher to brainwash people into religion and believing all those fantasy stories to turn you into a little good little bunny rabbit. There's Joel Osteen again. And, he's extremely popular down there in Texas. He has like a mega church and he gets tons of people in there. Now these people, they suck you in because the message that they give you, it sounds so wonderful, right? Like they just give you this dreamy little fantasy message and they tell you these things you want to hear. But, a lot of people are afraid of death. And this guy, he gives you an out, He says, oh, you're not going to die when you die. You don't really die. You go to some other place. No, you don't. When you die, that's it. You're never coming back. But they tell you these fantasy stories to keep you under control. Here it is. Now, I mentioned this before. What does the Bible mean when it says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers? Now, that the reason that Christian pastors tell this to their cult followers, it's because they don't want people who are being brainwashed by them to talk to outsiders, because those outsiders might snap them out of it. They don't want other people. They don't want outsiders interfering in their hustle and their scam. So they say, hey, guys, listen, don't talk to outsiders. Don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers, right? They don't believe, They have a way with words, and they have a way of brainwashing people. Now, here's John Hagee. He's a Christian pastor in Texas, has a big church. And, he likes threatening people and scaring people with hell and damnation and all this stuff. And he's a big supporter of Israel. And, yeah, he's just another one of this. He's just like all the other guys. They're all the same. They all have the same scam. They just tell you these fantasy stories. They get up there on stage. They get the best public speakers they can find. They get them up there on stage, and they brainwash the people in the audience to believe all these fantasy stories, and to say, oh, God loves you. Who the hell doesn't want to be loved? Everybody wants to be loved. So they say, God loves you. That's the love bombing. And, they make you feel good, right? They manipulate you by making you feel good, and that way you believe them. Yeah, so what is the New World Order? The New World Order is just going to be a world dictatorship, a world communist dictatorship. And they want to run it with religions from Israel, right? They say, oh, Israel's the Holy Land. No, Israel is not the Holy Land. There's nothing holy about Israel. Israel's just another place. It's just another country, just like any other country in the world. But these people have been telling the story for, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, or 1,000 years, and brainwashing people to think that, that piece of land is a special place, a special holy place or whatever, when there is no God. These people have just created a masterful work with their brainwashing cults, and I don't know. Most of the people, the general public, they don't realize that this is into pacified non-threats. See, here you go. Look at all the cults. See, you got Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Those are the brainwashing cults to control the lower mass. And there's your charismatic figure, right? The genius that everybody follows, Jesus. And he preached nonviolence. How you gonna beat the military with nonviolence? He preached nonviolence and let himself be murdered by the state. And he didn't have no weapons. He didn't tell his followers, "Hey, pick up arms, guys. We gotta arm ourselves to protect ourselves." He didn't defend himself. Okay. Now, in reality, what happens in the wild when the bunny rabbit doesn't defend itself? The lion eats it. The bunny rabbit better run. But Jesus tells you don't defend yourself. Just let yourself be murdered. Here's what I think of the Holy Bible. It's brainwashing. It's just putting you into fantasy. Women too. Women getting sucked into fantasy land. Now, a fanatic is one who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. That's religion. There's no fanatic like a religious fanatic. A lot of people, once they get into these religions, they become completely obsessed with them. So yeah, that's the new world order. It's a worldwide religious dictatorship. Oh, and this is the boogeyman. This is who they use to threaten you, to do what they say. Do what we say, or the boogeyman will get you. Right? And he's a scary character they came up with. He's like the scariest spooky boogeyman they could think of. Oh, there he is. There's the monster that's going to get you if you don't do what you're told. See? Now this guy doesn't exist either, guys. This is just a scary character, a monster demon character to scare you into doing what you're told and behaving as they want. See? This is fantasy land. Another fantasy, fictional character right? The only place you ever see this shit is in the movies. You don't see this guy in real life. That's movie baloney. Oh, that was from the Jack Black movie. So yeah, guys, there's two playbooks. There's the Elite's playbook, which is the laws of nature. And then there's the playbook for you, which is the Bible. To keep you a peaceful little bunny rabbit that is not a threat to the people in power. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked the video. I'll see you next time.